I'm Heather, 28, female. I live in a small, cozy apartment in the city, a place I built for myself through years of hard work. As an actuary, my life revolves around numbers, probabilities, and assessing risk, which is ironic given I never saw the biggest risk of my life materializing right in my own office. This is the story of how my two closest friends, the people I trusted most, tried to ruin my career, only to find themselves reporting directly to me. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. Our little trio was once the talk of the firm, Davidson and Finch. Me, Jessica, and Ben. We all started within a few months of each other, fresh, faced and eager to make our mark in the competitive world of actuarial science. We weren't just colleagues, we were a unit. We studied for our certification exams together, pulling all, nighters fueled by cheap coffee and a shared ambition. We celebrated each past exam as if it were a national holiday and supported each other through every failure. Jessica, a year older and infinitely more charismatic, was our unofficial leader. She had a magnetic personality that drew people in and a sharp mind that could cut through complex data like a hot knife through butter. Ben was the calming presence, the steady hand. He was meticulous, thoughtful, and had a dry sense of humor that could diffuse any tense situation. And me, I was the strategist, the one who could see the long-term picture and map out the steps to get there. We worked on the same team under Mr. Davidson, the head of the actuarial department. He was a stern but fair man, a veteran of the industry who valued hard work and precision above all else. He saw potential in our trio and often assigned us to high-stakes projects, trusting our combined skills to deliver results. For 5 years, we were inseparable. We had lunch together every day, went for drinks after work on Fridays, and even took a few vacations together. They were the siblings I never had. Jessica was the one I called when I had a terrible date, and Ben was the one who helped me assemble my IKEA furniture. I trusted them implicitly, not just with my professional aspirations, but with my personal life. I shared my dreams, my fears, and my deepest vulnerabilities with them. The foundation of our friendship felt like it was built on solid granite, reinforced with steel beams of shared experience and mutual respect. I believed without a shadow of a doubt that we would always have each other's backs. I thought we would climb the corporate ladder together, a shining example of collaboration and loyalty. It's painful to look back now and see how naive I was. The foundation I thought was so strong was nothing more than a house of cards, waiting for a single gust of wind to bring it all tumbling down. I just never imagined that one of my own friends would be the one to provide the breath that would shatter my world. The signs were there, small and almost insignificant, but I was too blinded by loyalty to see them for what they were, cracks in the columns of our carefully constructed friendship. The first crack appeared about 6 months ago. A senior actuary position opened up on our team. It was a significant promotion, a stepping stone to management, and we all knew it. Mr. Davidson had made it clear that the 3 of us were the top candidates. Instead of it being a healthy competition, however, the atmosphere began to shift. It started subtly. Jessica, who had always been our cheerleader, started making little digs, always disguised as jokes. "Oh, Heather, you're working late again, trying to get a gold star from Davidson," she'd say with a laugh, but her eyes held a competitive glint I'd never seen before. Ben, who was usually the mediator, started to withdraw. He put on his headphones and tuned us out, his focus on his work becoming almost obsessive. Our daily lunches became less frequent. First, it was Jessica who had a networking lunch she couldn't get out of. Then Ben started eating at his desk, claiming he was too swamped to take a break. Soon, I was eating alone more often than not. I tried to talk to them about it, to clear the air. "Is everything okay, guys? Things feel different." I ventured one afternoon. Jessica just waved a dismissive hand. "Don't be so dramatic, Heather. We're just busy. This promotion is a big deal." Her tone was clipped final. It was a conversation ender, not a starter. The project that truly exposed the cracks was the Henderson account, a massive portfolio that required a new, innovative approach to risk assessment. It was our chance to shine, and Mr. Davidson assigned it to the 3 of us, with the clear implication that our performance on this would heavily influence his decision for the promotion. I poured my heart and soul into it. I developed a new predictive model, one that was more accurate and efficient than anything our firm had ever used. I spent weeks on it, sacrificing my evenings and weekends, driven by a passion for the work. I shared my progress openly with Jessica and Ben, just as I always had. I walked them through the complex algorithms, explained my methodology, and welcomed their feedback. I thought we were a team, working towards a common goal. I presented my completed model to them in our small conference room, my laptop hooked up to the projector. "This is it," I said, my voice buzzing with excitement. "This could be a game changer for the firm." Jessica watched the presentation with an unreadable expression, while Ben just stared at his notepad, scribbling furiously. When I finished, I expected a discussion, a brainstorming session. Instead, there was silence. Finally, Jessica spoke. "It's impressive, Heather, really complex stuff." She didn't look at me. "Ben and I will need some time to digest it. We'll run some tests on our own and circle back." It felt cold, detached. The collaborative spirit was gone, replaced by a chilling corporate formality. That was the last I heard about it from them. A week later, I walked past Mr. Davidson's office and saw them inside, huddled around his desk, pointing at a presentation on his screen. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I recognized the charts and graphs. They were mine. A cold dread washed over me. Something was wrong. The cracks were no longer just hairline fractures. They were becoming gaping fissures, and I felt the ground beneath me starting to crumble. The day of the Henderson account presentation arrived. I walked into the main boardroom feeling a knot of anxiety in my stomach. Mr. Davidson was there, along with two of the firm's partners. I expected to present alongside Jessica and Ben as we had planned. But as I set up my laptop, Mr. Davidson cleared his throat. "Actually, Heather, Jessica will be leading the presentation today. She and Ben have put together a comprehensive analysis." I was stunned into silence. I looked at Jessica, who gave me a small, tight-lipped smile that didn't reach her eyes. Ben wouldn't even look at me. I sat down, my mind reeling. What was happening? Jessica began her presentation, and my blood ran cold. It was my model. She presented it as her own, using my slides, my data, my exact methodology. She had made a few cosmetic changes, altered the color scheme of the graphs, and rephrased some of my key findings, but it was undeniably my work. She was a natural presenter, confident and articulate, and she sold it beautifully. She even managed to answer the partners' complex questions with ease, using the very explanations I had given her in our initial meeting. When she finished, the room broke into applause. Mr. Davidson was beaming. "Outstanding work, Jessica. Truly innovative. This is exactly the kind of forward thinking we need in a senior role." My heart sank. I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was Ben. "I'm sorry, Heather," he whispered, his face pale. "She told me you were okay with it, that you'd agreed she should take the lead since she had more presentation experience." The excuse was so flimsy, so pathetic, that it was almost laughable. He had seen me work on it for weeks. He knew it was mine. He had chosen to look the other way, to be a silent accomplice in her theft. After the meeting, I confronted Jessica in the hallway. "How could you?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and hurt. "That was my work." She didn't flinch. She looked me straight in the eye, her expression cold and hard. "You're too naive, Heather. This is a competitive world. You can't just expect people to hand you a promotion because you work hard. You have to take what you want." She then added the final, devastating blow. "Besides, your presentation skills are weak. You would have fumbled it. I did us all a favor." She turned and walked away, leaving me standing there, utterly shattered. It wasn't just the theft of my work that hurt. It was the betrayal of our friendship. The people I had trusted completely had not only stolen from me, but had also insulted my intelligence and dismissed my contributions. The fine print of our friendship agreement had been revealed, and it was filled with clauses of deceit, ambition, and a complete disregard for loyalty. I went back to my desk, the praise for Jessica's brilliant work echoing in the office, and felt a profound sense of isolation. I was alone, but as the initial shock and pain began to subside, it was replaced by something else, a cold, hard resolve. They thought I was naive. They thought I was weak. They had made a serious miscalculation. The next day, it was announced that Jessica had been promoted to senior actuary. The team celebrated with a cake in the break room. I offered a forced smile and a quiet congratulations, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. Jessica was triumphant, soaking in the praise, while Ben hovered in the background, looking guilty. I knew I couldn't let it stand. Crying about it wouldn't change anything. Accusing them without concrete proof would just make me look like a sore loser. My mind, trained to find patterns and anomalies in numbers, shifted into a different gear. I needed evidence, an undeniable paper trail that would lead back to me. The first thing I did was check the server logs. Our firm had a meticulous system for tracking document access and modifications. I started with the file for my predictive model. As I scrolled through the access history, my heart began to pound. There it was, in black and white. My user ID, H. Miller, showed a consistent pattern of creation, editing, and saving over a period of several weeks. Then, a few days before the presentation, there was a new entry. Jessica's user ID, J. Davis, had accessed the file and saved a new version under a different name, Henderson Model Final JD. She had been clumsy. She hadn't just copied the data. She had saved a copy of my entire file, complete with its original creation date and my author credentials embedded in the metadata. It was the digital equivalent of a smoking gun. But I needed more. I remembered the late nights I had spent perfecting the model. I had often emailed myself drafts and research articles to read at home. I began to meticulously comb through my sent emails, my personal archives, my cloud backups. I compiled a timeline, documenting every stage of my work, from the initial concept to the final algorithm. I found the initial proposal I had sketched out on a napkin during a late-night brainstorming session and had scanned into my phone. I had emails to a former professor, asking for his opinion on a specific statistical function I was using. I even had the raw data sets I had used for testing, complete with my handwritten notes in the margins. I was building a fortress of evidence, brick by painstaking brick. My investigation led me to an old project folder from a year ago, one where I had first experimented with a similar, less refined version of the algorithm. The core logic was the same. The file history showed that only I had ever accessed it. Jessica wouldn't know about this precursor work. It was my unique intellectual signature. I then looked at Ben's role. His betrayal was more subtle, but just as damaging. I remembered him taking copious notes during my presentation. I checked the version history of the final presentation slides Jessica had used. Ben's user ID appeared multiple times, making minor edits. He had been her accomplice, helping her rephrase my findings and repackage my work. He hadn't just looked the other way, he had actively participated. For 2 weeks, I lived a double life. By day, I was the quiet, diligent actuary, going about my work, avoiding Jessica and Ben as much as possible. By night, I was a forensic investigator, piecing together the story of their deceit. I organized everything into a clear, concise report, complete with screenshots, server logs, and a detailed timeline. I felt like I was preparing the most important risk assessment of my life, calculating the probability of justice. The paper trail was complete, it was irrefutable, and it led directly to them. Now, all I had to do was decide when and how to present my findings. With my fortress of evidence built, my first instinct was to go straight to Mr. Davidson, but I paused. A direct confrontation could get messy. Jessica was a master manipulator, and she would undoubtedly try to twist the narrative, paint me as jealous and vindictive. Mr. Davidson valued stability and hated internal drama. He said, she said, scenario might result in a slap on the wrist for her and a tarnished reputation for me. No, I needed a more strategic approach. I needed to architect a comeback that was as calculated and precise as the models I built. I knew the firm had a quarterly performance review system. Mr. Davidson held them personally with each member of our team. Mine was scheduled for the end of the month. That would be my stage, but I wouldn't just present my evidence against Jessica. I would present a vision for the future, a future where I was in charge. I shifted my focus from proving their guilt to proving my own worth. I took on a new project, one that everyone else had been avoiding. It was a legacy account with years of messy, disorganized data. It was considered a professional dead end. For the next 2 weeks, I immersed myself in it. I worked with an almost manic intensity, fueled by adrenaline and a burning desire for vindication. I automated the data cleaning process, built a new, streamlined reporting system, and identified several key areas of risk that had been overlooked for years. I didn't just fix the account, I revolutionized it. I transformed a liability into a profitable asset. While Jessica was busy enjoying the perks of her new senior position, delegating tasks and attending important meetings, I was in the trenches, doing the hard, unglamorous work and creating undeniable value. I was building a case not just for my past work, but for my future potential. During this time, I also started to subtly plant seeds of doubt. Our firm had an internal messaging system. I sent a message to a colleague in the IT department, a friend from a different team. Hey, quick question. I wrote, I was looking at the metadata on an old file, and the author information seems off. Is that a common glitch? He confirmed that it was highly unusual. I knew their conversation logs were archived. It was another small piece of my paper trail. I also had a quiet coffee with another colleague, one who had always been skeptical of Jessica's charm. I didn't accuse anyone of anything. I simply mentioned how proud I was of the Henderson model and how I had spent months developing the core algorithm, referencing the precursor project from the previous year. It's amazing how ideas can evolve, isn't it? I said casually. The seed was planted. The day before my performance review, I finalized my preparations. I had 2 documents ready. The first was a detailed report on the legacy account I had salvaged, showcasing my skills and my impact on the firm's bottom line. The second was my folder of evidence against Jessica and Ben, titled simply Henderson Account Project Timeline. I had a plan. It was audacious and it was risky, but my entire career had been about assessing risk. And this was one gamble I was willing to take. I wasn't just going to reclaim my stolen work. I was going to leverage their betrayal to propel myself to a position where they could never harm me again. I walked into Mr. Davidson's office for my performance review feeling strangely calm. The anxiety was gone, replaced by a steely determination. I sat across from him at his large mahogany desk. He started with the usual pleasantries, then moved on to my performance. "Heather, your work has always been solid, reliable," he said, looking at his notes. "But I have to be honest, I was a little disappointed that you didn't take more of a leadership role on the Henderson account." This was my opening. "I understand why you might think that, Mr. Davidson," I replied, my voice even and steady, "but I believe my contributions have been misunderstood." I slid the report on the legacy account across the desk. "Before we discuss Henderson, I'd like to show you what I've been working on for the past 2 weeks. As he read through my report, his eyebrows began to climb. He was visibly impressed. I had taken a notorious problem and solved it in a way no one else had thought of. "This is remarkable, Heather," he said, looking up at me with a newfound respect. "The savings alone from this are substantial." "Thank you," I said. "I believe in letting the work speak for itself," which brings me to the Henderson account. I took a deep breath and slid the second folder across the desk. "I've compiled a detailed project timeline for that as well. I think you'll find it illuminating." Mr. Davidson opened the folder. The first page was a simple summary, followed by the server logs, the screenshots, the emails, the metadata analysis. I watched his face as he read. His expression shifted from confusion to disbelief, then to a quiet, simmering anger. He spent nearly 20 minutes silently reading, occasionally flipping back a page to reference a detail. The evidence was overwhelming, and the story it told was one of blatant, calculated theft. When he finally looked up, his face was grim. "Stay here," he said, his voice low. He picked up his phone and called his assistant. "Please ask Jessica Davis and Ben Carter to come to my office immediately." A few minutes later, they walked in, Jessica with a confident smile and Ben looking nervous. Her smile vanished the moment she saw me sitting there and the folder on Mr. Davidson's desk. The atmosphere in the room was thick with tension. Mr. Davidson didn't waste any time. "Jessica," he began, his voice dangerously calm, "can you walk me through the development process for the Henderson model, your process?" Jessica, caught off guard, began to stammer. She gave a vague, high-level overview, filled with corporate buzzwords. Mr. Davidson then turned to a specific page in my report. "Can you explain the precursor algorithm you base this on, the one developed in the Project Phoenix folder from last year?" A look of pure panic flashed across Jessica's face. She had no idea what he was talking about. She looked at Ben for help, but he was staring at the floor, refusing to meet her gaze. I'm not sure what you're referring to," she faltered. "Heather can," Mr. Davidson said, his voice like ice. He turned to me. I calmly and concisely explained the original algorithm, its purpose, and how I had adapted and improved it for the Henderson account. It was a checkmate. Mr. Davidson's fury was cold and controlled. He laid out the evidence piece by piece. He didn't raise his voice, but the quiet disappointment in his tone was far more damning than any shouting match could have been. He looked at Jessica. "You not only stole a colleague's work, you lied to me, and you lied to the partners of this firm. You have compromised your integrity, and you are a liability to this company." Then he turned to Ben. "And you stood by and let it happen. That makes you a coward and an accomplice. The takeover was complete. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was a quiet, systematic dismantling of their lies, executed with the precision of an actuary. They were exposed not by accusations, but by undeniable facts. In that moment, I wasn't just an employee anymore. I had seized control of my own narrative, and in doing so, had taken control of the room. The power dynamic had irrevocably shifted. The aftermath was swift and decisive. Jessica was fired on the spot, escorted out of the building by security with a small box of her personal belongings. Her reign as senior actuary was one of the shortest in the firm's history. Ben was not fired, but his punishment was, in many ways, more humiliating. He was formally reprimanded, his name was removed from consideration for any promotions for the next 2 years, and he was issued a final written warning. His reputation was shattered. He was now the office pariah, a walking cautionary tale about the consequences of spinelessness. The next morning, Mr. Davidson called me into his office. "Heather," he said, "first, I want to apologize. I should have seen this. Your work has always been exceptional, and I allowed myself to be swayed by presentation over substance." He then made an announcement that sent a shockwave through me. The partners had been so impressed with my handling of the situation, my strategic thinking, my meticulous evidence gathering, and my courage, that they had decided to create a new position. They were restructuring the department, and they wanted me to lead it. I was being promoted to head of actuarial strategy, a managerial role that would oversee all major projects. And yes, the promotion came with the title, the corner office, and a significant salary increase. It also meant that what remained of our old team, including Ben, would now report directly to me. My first day in the new role was surreal. As I moved my things into my new office, the same one Jessica had occupied for less than a week, Ben knocked tentatively on the door. He looked like a shadow of his former self. "Heather," he started, his voice barely a whisper. I have no words. I am so sorry. What I did was unforgivable. I will understand if you want me transferred to another team." I looked at him for a long moment. I felt no pity, but I also felt no desire for petty revenge. Wielding my new power with cruelty would make me no better than them. "You're not going anywhere, Ben," I said, my voice firm and professional. "You will stay on this team, you will do your job to the best of your ability, and you will learn what loyalty and integrity actually mean. You will earn back my respect, not with apologies, but with your work. Do you understand?" He nodded, looking relieved and ashamed all at once. "Yes, thank you." He turned to leave. "Oh, and Ben," I added, my voice stopping him at the door, "from now on you will call me MS, Miller in a professional setting." He just nodded again and quickly walked away. I sat down in my new leather chair and looked out the window at the city skyline. I had not just survived, I had thrived. I had turned the worst betrayal of my life into the greatest triumph of my career. I hadn't needed to scream or scheme. I had used my skills, my intellect, and my integrity as my weapons. My former friends, the people who had tried to push me off the ladder, were now at the very bottom, looking up at me. I was the queen of the castle they had tried to steal, and I had built it on a foundation of truth, a foundation that could never be broken.